Longtime college football coach, former Baylor defensive coordinator Phil Bennett with us on 365 Sports on Mondays to look back at the weekend itself. Phil, we're going to start with Texas and Alabama. We appreciate your time every single week. That looked like it was a better team out of Texas than they were at Alabama. Alabama's got a couple of Achilles tendons that are showing. But your thoughts about why do you think now this appears to be more than just an overhyped football team at Texas?
Well, Smoak, I think you got to start with defense. They played really well. Their front is active. They're fast. They're secondary. They're breaking on balls. I sort of look at them and I look at the Aggies. The Aggies look like they were playing in mud on defense. Texas looked fast. And the interceptions, they're well coached. I think they've got a good feel about their personnel, and of course their quarterback played well. Their offensive line really got after Alabama, and Quinn Ewing was he left off that game where he did a year ago. And truthfully, I don't know about you, but I thought it could have been worse. I really do.
Yeah, I think, Phil, had they kind of gotten going early in the game, like it looked to me like Ewers was like waiting to break through the wall for a little bit, and then when he did, it was just on.
Right. And when you have receivers like they have, I mean long ball receivers, there was a couple of plays that were balls were dropped on the first drive with a field goal, should have been a touchdown, and there was just opportunities there. He was putting the ball. I read somewhere that one of the writers in Austin said he didn't throw a good deep ball. Well, they need to rewrite that. Last week he did throw a good deep ball, and I just thought they were in command of what they were trying to get done on both sides of the ball and the kicking game.
Outside of them having, an off night where Ewers isn't hitting on the deep ball, or maybe receivers aren't playing as well. I mean, they've got just a group of guys that are studs in that receiving core. The big tight end and Sanders. I mean, how do you go about trying to break them down and defend all that, Coach?
Well, one of the things I've always told people, when you put a tight end in the unit and he's a Kittle, Kell, that type of guy, I'm telling you, your work as a defensive coordinator goes up tenfold, because it is a matchup from hell. And you saw that in that game. When Zero got the ball thrown to him, he was usually open and he ran. Their yards after catch were really good. And that's a great point, Craig. They're able to go down the field and attack you. They can attack linebackers, they can attack safeties, and they can attack corners. So, the other thing, Brooks, their running back, I believe he's from Hallettsville, is really a good player.
Yeah, he kind of gets the tough yards. Not that he can't get outside, but he does seem to get the physical yards. They don't have Bijan or Roschon, but they still have with Baxter, the freshman, who might have gotten dinged up in that game. How much, in all the years of you coaching, were the teams you coached that had really good team speed on defense the ones that forced most of the turnovers?
Oh, yeah. When I've told you, I think we've talked many times. I will give up size and weight for twitch and speed. You've got to be able to run. Do you remember KJ Smith that played for us?
Yep.
KJ was 6'1", and you can ask everybody that ever played him. I remember the kid from Michigan State told him after the game, he said, "I've never played a guy like you." Just speed and quickness. And it's still at every position, David, you've got to be able to move. It's still a movement game. You watch the Cowboys defense last night, and if you sit there and you watch them, you say, God, they have speed at every position. I thought Texas did, and I thought you look at the difference. I say this again, and I'm not beating up on the Aggies, but they really didn't show any speed or anything that you would say, man, they're swarmers. I saw Texas swarming.
Coach, on Alabama's side, and I know that like for Bama, it's so hard for anybody to make a dent in them. What Saban has built there is is unbelievable. But the transfer portal appears to, if you go and look at anybody, look, Miami has 3 Alabama transfers or 4. TCU has 3 or 4. Everybody's got an Alabama transfer on their roster now. How much does that put a little bit of a dent in them where it didn't before, where they can't stash and develop guys now because if you have to wait a year or two, you might just get in the portal and go play at Miami where you're starting right away?
Oh, I don't think that Paul, that's definitely a factor. You know, the kid from Alito and, you know, there you could go on and on. The kid from the tight end, you know, so you can go on and on. Now, I will tell you this, you know, I think the demise of Alabama has been greatly exaggerated. I think you can remember a couple of years ago, you know, they lost to somebody and ended up winning the national championship. They're just, you know, they will. I like the way Nick handles his defeat. He's practical. He's real. He lets the players know that it's a we thing and not a me thing or a you thing. And we will get better. This is the start. This is not the finish. And I think now, I don't think they're as talented as they've been. I think the quarterback will get better. I think obviously somebody was saying, why are they playing him? There's got to be better. He's an athlete, and I really believe they feel like they could get him at a higher level. And that's why he stayed in the game.
Coach, we've been talking about it a lot today, but Baylor falls again, 6th straight loss for them. Utah at home had an opportunity and just could not close it on out. A lot of credit to Utah and just how good they are under Kyle Whittingham. But how much did you get to see that, and just what were your thoughts on them trying to bounce back from what was obviously a very rough debut against Texas State?
Well, first of all, I watched every snap of it. I thought they played, and to be complimentary, they played with great energy on both sides of the ball. I think I told you last week, don't be surprised if they don't beat them, that it's a heck of a game. And you know, I know what those guys are made of. They're good coaches, good guys. They had those guys ready to play. And, you know, I'm gonna, you know, you could look at a game like that and you have certain things happen, missed a few plays here, missed a tackle, had a penalty here, but there was vast improvement. I'm going to say this. I have never seen a last play of the game. Baylor should have had the ball with one play to play at the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
That was I don't care what anybody says. I'm more qualified. I've done it longer. That was interference for 4 seconds. And for them not to make that call at the end of the game like that is ridiculous. I mean, it affected the play. And I'm not saying they would have scored, but I thought Baylor fought to the very end. You know, some people considered that they became a little bit stagnant on offense. I read where the quarterback got injured a little bit. So you're always trying to appease what you can do. But I thought they played hard. Utah, as we talked about early in the year, you know, that they have a good roster. Now, I don't believe after watching them that they really were confident in either quarterback. And I thought Baylor they ran the ball efficiently, made some big plays, missed some plays, but it was a hell of a game.
Phil, did you see they had one, unfortunately, when Utah, if you're a Baylor fan or a coach or player, when Utah had a chance to go down and drive to tie the game, they had a play with 10 men on the field on defense. They had a safety missing. Yeah. And Dave Aranda, I asked him about that today, and he said something about the communication from the box to a GA on the sideline who must have or was doing some other role, and it just was an absolute mistake that will never happen again. Did that ever happen to you when you were on the sideline or in the box?
Absolutely. I don't know if you remember this, but we're the year in 15, we're going to go. It's a tight game, and it's 3rd down and 4. We make the play, and our D-line guy didn't come out fast enough in the sub and gave them a 1st down. They go down, and on 4th down they score. I don't know if you remember that, but it turned the whole game around. I really felt we would have beat them. Yes, it's happened, and to say it hadn't, I would be lying. It's happened. Yes, it has.
Did you see anything different with what they did, even though Utah was probably themselves a little bit handcuffed because of the quarterback play?
Well, I will tell you, I've told you this forever. Sometimes you just match up better with certain teams. One of the things, I'm going to go back to Texas State and UTSA. Jeff and them, they knew how to play tempo. And they had played, it was obvious their kids that played tempo. They played tempo so much better than Baylor did. And Utah didn't use a lot of hurry-up tempo, which I think really helped Baylor get their calls in. Very few substitutions as the ones you talked about. So I think that helped them. Now, and I think that they're not quite at full speed offensively without that quarterback who's really, he's a run and a pass threat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
His brother, I know him personally. His brother was an offensive line for us at Arizona State. He's quite an athlete.
Phil, you mentioned the Aggies looking like they were stuck in mud against Miami, a team that had no speed a year ago. None. And now that's all that they are. Where do you think that they went awry? Because they're outside of having to let some guys go for discipline. They've been stacking recruits. Is this a developmental issue they're having right now?
I know this. They've got some really good players. But what I didn't see defensively, I don't see a lot of twitch and speed in the front. I know they're average at linebacker. We've got a bunch of 5-star D linemen, but most of them are inside guys, and they're good inside. But I didn't see any edge guys, anybody that would challenge and have the twitch. I think they're very average in the secondary. They've got safeties that are not coverage guys. They gave up a 50-yard pass early in the game, just on a seam route, on a go route. They're going to be challenged to get better. And I've told them, everybody's in the dumps here, but this is one game. And I look at them playing UL Monroe, playing Auburn, playing Arkansas. They could win every one of those games. They just got their secondary coach for me at Arizona State. He's a great coach. They will get better, I promise. They have some guys that are inexperienced. They just didn't play. When you don't play fast and knowing what you're doing, it does. It makes you look slow. And they didn't look very active, on Saturday.
Phil, I don't know. You can, if I know you'll respond to any questions we have, but Jeff Lebby was forced and apologized today for Art being his father-in-law being on the sideline after the game. It became a big deal for Oklahoma media, and of course, then it floods social media, and there's this back and forth. It sounded as if Brent Venables was caught off guard, and then Joe Castiglione, the AD, basically mentioned something about parameters that Jeff Lebby knew about when it came to Art Briles. What are your thoughts about the reaction from the post game after a win with Coach Briles being in an Oklahoma T-shirt with the logo, and how it then just became a firestorm again?
Well, I was extremely disappointed. Number one, that whoever the media guy asked it, why was it an issue? He was there for his son-in-law, his family. People, let me tell you this: Oklahoma is not the moral judge of anybody. With what they did with Joe Mixon. Castiglione needs to think about that. He knocked the girl out, and they still honor him. And Art Briles just came on the field. It burns my ass up that nobody will take a stand. Hey, you know what? Maybe there were parameters, but I think it was more about practice or something like that. You're not going to find a guy any better than Art Briles. I'll say it to the day I die. That's BS. I like what Jeff said after. It's hard for me to pull for Oklahoma after that. I think all of them are being judgmental and something that they think the media wants to hear that. It's BS. It will continue to be BS. And I'm going to tell you this, that they aren't the people that there's been more things going at Oklahoma in the history. And I don't know why Joe would make a statement like that to number one, embarrass Jeff and also try to get something at Art. I don't know why. I've known Joe for a long time. always respect him, but he's wrong. He's dead wrong.
Can I ask you a follow-up?
Yes.
So you know a lot of coaches in the professional business. Everyone knows the story. People will take one side or the other. A lot of people know perhaps the entire truth, and some will only think they know from what they read or heard. What do other coaches around the community that you know that are still involved or were involved, what do they think about that Briles is so toxic he cannot get hired?
You know, we're in the instant news society. We're in Twitter. You know, everybody wants to say, and most of the time, and you know this, Smoak, you're in it, and one of the things I like about you, you're objective. You don't have people. You have haters out there. And that's why I struggle a lot with ESPN. I was in the middle of that thing. You know, people don't realize that this situation, when this documentary comes out, you're gonna see some things you're going, oh my goodness, really? You know, this thing was handled very poorly by certain people in the Board of Regents at Baylor that have given Art a stigma that he doesn't deserve, and the program. And that's not everybody. I don't feel that way about it. But there were some decisions that were made that affected and really slandered every one of them. And probably people like me to a lesser extent than some of the younger ones.
Thanks for your time. We appreciate you, Coach. Appreciate your time as always.
Guys.
Phil Bennett,
All right.
former Baylor defensive coordinator, he was asked to be the interim coach when Coach Briles was fired that summer, was asked to become the interim coach, and he basically said, no, I don't want to do that. And then, of course, there was the Grant Taft made the call, among others, about bringing in Jim Grobe, who was one of the nicest people and could not have been perhaps a better choice that year in 2016. I don't bring that up